This is a movie about how we lie to ourselves and we don't realize it. But like it's crazy because this movie on the surface looks like something you would find at a bargain bin at like Walmart. I don't know if they still have those. They all look the same. They all have Liam Neeson or Bruce Willis just holding a gun, pointing it at somebody, looking like worried or like looking intense.
Yeah, the poster's just Tom Cruise with a gun.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's me with a gun. That's all you gotta know. And the title is like ludicrous or the edge of night or something like two words, a couple words, you know.
Yeah,
Very couple intense words.
Just before the dawn.
The grind, you know, something like that. Some intense word. And it's sad because like this movie would be lumped in with that, and this has so much more depth than anything like that, than that type of genre. The movie opens on Tom Cruise, who looks very different than any other character he's ever played because he's wearing a gray suit. He looks nice, but he's got like a salt and peppery kind of a beard.
It's scruff. I'd call it scruff.
Yeah, scruff.
Sunglasses indoors as well.
Who should he bump into but Jason Statham? Who hasn't run into Jason Statham at an airport? Like, we can all relate to that.
He wouldn't stop running into me.
In this scene, of course, they have to put Tom Cruise on a milk crate because he's, like, way shorter than...
Yeah. They bump into each other in the most suspicious way possible.
They switch briefcases, and so that communicates to the movie that, like, oh, there's something shady going on. And then we kind of leave him for a bit, and we go introduce our character Max, who is the main character of the film. Yeah, he's the lead. I don't care what the Oscars say.
Not supporting. He is
not
the
supporting.
Lead.
He's the lead.
This is really not up for debate.
So we go to Jamie Foxx, whose character's name is Max, and he's a cab driver, and he's in like the facility where all the other taxi cab drivers are. And this is LA. And so you kind of just get like a kind of the day in the life with him for a little bit where he's driving around like some LA yuppies. But he keeps looking at this picture while he's doing it. He's got it stuck to the sun visor and he keeps looking at it. It's a picture of an island. So like every time he gets annoyed with like a cabbie or something, he looks at it. Then, unfortunately, we get introduced to Jada Pinkett Smith. She comes in and they have like a little bet on like if he can drive her somewhere, because like they're arguing about like how to get somewhere, and like this is something that people in LA always argue about, and it's not exclusive to LA, but I've noticed it a lot more with people from LA. They're like, oh, take this route to this route, and then they'd argue about like, oh, well, you should have gone this way, right? Because everybody thinks they have the right way to go. Long story short, Max wins the bet. In the end, they have kind of this heart to heart that's a little bit hard to believe because like most people don't like spill their true feelings out to one another, but it's a meet cute.
Yeah,
so.
Most people don't admit they were wrong.
Yeah, but they also don't like she talks about like how she really feels like when she loses a case, you know, and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
You know?
she gets pretty vulnerable.
Yeah, not alopecia vulnerable, but like still pretty vulnerable.
My God.
He tells her about the island, and like he tells her that the island is like the place he goes to when he needs to like escape reality, essentially.
He pulls down his sun visor to get away, and then snaps back to reality.
Yeah, which we can relate. I think most people can relate to that if you're in a job you don't like. But he also tells her about this business that he wants to do, and it's like a limo business. It's like island limos. Oh, he gives her the picture because he feels like she needs it more than he does. But I think he's just like
that was sweet.
He's just trying to like get in her pants though. Like, let's be real.
I think he was okay. Hold on. I think he was genuinely being a nice guy. I think he thought she was cute.
And so she gets out and he's like, oh man, I can't believe I just gave her my favorite picture. But she turns around and she knocks on the glass and she's like, you know what? I think I will give this guy my number because I might want to cheat on Will Smith later. Does he like go to the airport after that to just like wait for people? Because like that's a good way to get business. I assume that's what he does. And Silver Fox himself comes out. By the way, I want to say this is my favorite performance that Tom Cruise has ever done. Closely behind this would be his character in Tropic Thunder because it's just so weird. So he gets in and immediately you kind of start to see the contrast between them. So they're driving and like they're making small talk. I wonder if Max would have had more tips if he had candy in his car. He keeps a clean car, but like I wonder if he had snacks like Kimmy Schmidt, if he just had like nachos or something for people to like chew on. He was like a guy gets on the Amtrak or the train or whatever, dies, and nobody notices for like a whole like day or something, right? It goes from end to end and nobody notices. He makes that little remark and then they keep driving and he takes him to his destination and he does it in the time that he said he was going to do it and he's kind of impressed by that. He offers him like, hey, how about you be my driver for the night? I'll pay you $600. So he takes him to his first destination and he's just waiting outside because he tells him earlier that he has like 5 stops to make. Max is waiting for him. He's eating dinner. He he wants to go to his happy place, and he opens his visor and he's like, oh shit, I gave Jada Pinkett Smith my getaway island. And like right after that, a body like crashes directly onto his cab. Vincent runs back and he's looking kind of shady and shifty, and he's looking around, and he puts it together. He's like, oh, you killed him. You're the hitman. So he goes, why don't you take the cab and I'm going to leave. And he's like, you promise you won't tell anybody, right? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, okay, well, let's pinky swear. We'll spit shake, and that'll seal it. And they're like, cool. No, that doesn't happen. He says, get in the fucking car. This is a hostage situation. You're my bitch now. Now they're driving, and Jamie...
Word for word.
Yeah, word for word. Jamie Foxx is freaking out.
And so it got nominated for screenplay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he's like trying to like wrap his brain around it. Like, you just meet... He's like, what did that guy do to you? I don't know. I just met him that night. He's like, you met him once and you kill him like that? Well, I should only kill people when I get to know them. Now the audience is starting to put together like, oh, he's a hitman. Like this is his job. Right. And he talks about, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and he's like, nobody batted an eye. You didn't bat an eye when you heard that. You didn't bat an eye when you heard about Rwanda. Like it's like nobody gives a shit. It's like his philosophy. And he's like, nobody notices, nobody cares.
One of Vincent's characteristic failures here, not the writer's failure, it's a failure on Vincent's part, is the inability to delineate what it's like to hear about a historical tragedy and to be alive or witness a historical tragedy. Hearing about something is not the same as going through it. He's talking about things that he wasn't a part of or wasn't alive for. And just being like, see, nobody cares. It's like, okay, but like you weren't there either, my guy.
He's like, what? You have feelings? What are those? While he's trying to calm him down, they get pulled over by the cops because the cops notice that his cab is fucked up from the body crashing on it.
Mark Ruffalo is playing a detective. He's a narcotics officer who has been undercover for about 4 months trying to tail down the guy who ends up being Vincent's first victim who lands on the cab.
So the cops pull him over, and Vincent's like, you better talk your way out of a ticket.
He basically just tells him, figure it out, or I'm going to murder these cops.
Yeah, he does. He's like, if you don't figure this out, they're going in the trunk. And like, there's people around and shit. And I'm like, okay.
By the way, there's already the first body in the trunk. The guy who landed on the cab, they put him in the trunk.
They notice blood on the windshield. They notice the cab is smashed up. He's like, oh, I hit a deer. And he's like, you hit a deer in LA? He's like, yeah, they're out there, Then there's kind of an ex machina because Vincent's about to shoot them, and then they get like a call, and they're like, oh, we gotta go. Sorry, there's a more severe crime happening. We gotta get out of here. But we're gonna call your supervisor and let him know that you gotta take the cab in. So when they get to target number 2, that's when his supervisor calls him. I love this scene because Vincent gets like irritated, and he's like looking at his watch, and he's like, oh, this guy. He's basically telling him to be an asshole to his boss so that his boss will let him off the hook, And he's like, well, tell him it's an accident, you're not liable. And he's just like, well, tell him to stick the cab up his fat ass. And he's like, I can't do that. That's my boss. I need this job. And he says, no, you don't. Again, at first, like the first couple times I watched this, I'm like, oh, he's just being an asshole. I think he really believes that he doesn't need this job. Because earlier he talks to him they talk about like him being a cabbie, and he says, this is just temporary. And he's like, how long you been doing this? 12 years. And so right there, Vincent's thinking, that's not temporary. So basically they tell his boss off, and he goes up and kills his next target. But before he does that, he ties him to the steering wheel, and Django gets chained. He's in the cab car, and he's trying to make like noise so that someone will come like help him. But he's like in an alley tucked away. And instead of attracting good people, he attracts people who rob him. Just as they're walking away with Vincent's briefcase, Vincent comes down and he shoots the shit out of him and gets his briefcase back. So the reason Tom Cruise is all gray is because he's supposed to be... Michael Mann wanted him to be a guy that could get in and out of a place unnoticed. And like gray is the color that you recognize the least. Michael Mann supposedly made Tom Cruise go into public places, go in and out of them without being noticed by anyone. Right after that, they go to a jazz guy. That's target number 3. They listen to him play for a bit, and then they talk to him afterwards. Again, they're really subtle with the backstory. They don't really give too much away, but you see that there was some kind of shady business. He like pissed off the wrong guy or whatever, because he's like, hey, I'll ask you a question. If you get it right, then I won't shoot you. He gets it right, and he shoots him anyway. And then Max is like super pissed about this. But then Max hears from his boss again, and his boss says that your mother's like calling me nonstop. You need to go see your mom. And so Vincent's like, yeah, we can't do things out of the ordinary. We can't have people looking for you, so let's go see your mom. So they go to the hospital. Max is forced to introduce this killer of men to his mother, which is something he doesn't want to do. This scene is interesting because for a lot of reasons, but they run into Mark Ruffalo, which is like a crazy coincidence.
In
Mark
the
Ruffalo
elevator of the hospital. Yeah.
And he's there to identify some bodies that he shot, that the man in the elevator that Vincent shot. Yep. They meet his mom, and his mom's a character. Max is visibly like annoyed. Like his mom starts talking to Vincent like Max isn't in the room, and that annoys him. But then what really pisses him off is she starts talking to him about Max's limo business, which is something he didn't want to tell Vincent at first because it's a vulnerable thing, right?
Sure.
It's like his dream. And that's when Max kind of snaps and grabs his briefcase and runs away. And then they have this chase where he tries to, he chases him down. Yeah, he throws the briefcase over an overpass, which like shatters the whole like hit list, and now he's like, well, I can't, that's my work. Like I can't just get another list. Right. And so now he's got to improvise. He takes him to see Felix, and he tells him, like, they park outside, and he's like, hey, you're going to go in and pretend to be me and get the list back. And of course he's like, I can't do this. I'm not this kind of person, blah, blah, blah. But he's like, if you don't, I'm going to go back to the hospital and kill your mom. So eventually he goes. And this is kind of a big moment for for Max, because this is where he has to pretend to be strong, or at least he has to, if there is any strength within him, he has to like find it, and he has to like become Vincent. But anyway, he ends up pulling it off, which is crazy. And then we get like the side of the police. They're starting to put together what's going on. Max and Vincent go to hit number 4, which is in a nightclub that's super crowded. So the police are like starting to figure out what they're doing. They're kind of getting onto them, and they follow them to the nightclub, and it turns into like this huge shootout. And Mark Ruffalo gets killed, and Max almost gets killed, but Vincent saves him. So this is when Max is starting to crack a little, and they kind of start to butt heads a little more. He's starting to be like, I can't believe you're doing this, blah, blah, blah. I can't believe you shot all those people. And he's starting to get like really sick of him, and he's verbally like expressing it. And Vincent's like, I'm just taking out the garbage, man. And he starts getting all like philosophical, and he's like, billions of galaxies, and we're just a speck, man. Time is a flat circle, all that shit.
Yeah. Time is a flat circle.
He just turns into Matthew McConaughey. It's all gonna happen again and again. We're all part of the same dream. So the thing I love about this movie more than anything is the idea that the hero can learn something from the villain. Other movies have done this, but not enough, I think. Black Panther is another movie that's done that, where we know something is wrong with the world or with the status quo, but the main character doesn't know how to fix it, so they're going about it the wrong way. And then the villain comes over and says, this is wrong, and they're right, but they're going about it the wrong way. And then Chadwick Boseman saves the day, and he's like, you're right, but you're going about it the wrong way. I'm going to do it the right way. Avatar: The Legend of Korra does this. Not as good as Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it's okay. It's a mixed bag. That's a whole nother story. What I like about The Legend of Korra is that in each season, she learns something from the villain.
Right.
Which I think is really cool. To me, that shows a lot of, not only vulnerability, but a lot of intelligence, when you can say, hey, I have a hero who is flawed, who has a good heart, but like it doesn't know everything, and can learn something from someone else, even if that person is extreme and like not a great person, And it also humanizes like the villain and doesn't demonize them, which I'm a huge fan of. I bring all that up to say that this movie is a perfect example of the two antagonists and the protagonist learning something from each other, particularly Max learning something from Vincent, because Vincent calls him out on his bullshit right here. It's because he said a lot of stuff about him, and he's like, oh, you're calling me out right now. You're saying I'm low. You're saying I'm a bad person because I'm doing this stuff. And he's like, one day, you're going to look at the clock and wonder where the time went, and one day you're going to be old. That dream you have, someday my dream will come. Like, it's never going to happen. You're going to look up at the clock and be like, it never happened. And it never will, because you were never going to do it anyway. You've been doing this for 12 years. Like, you had all the time to do this. If Max would have had one friend tell him, like, nah, man, like, you're kind of full of shit. Like, you got to chase your dream a little harder, Like, right. Someone to, like, tell him that. I like that the two characters butt heads at this point. Max kind of like, there's a shift in him, and he's like, I got to thank you a little bit because I never really thought about it that way. And then he starts to speed up. And he's like, slow down. And he's like, shoot me then, motherfucker. Like, I don't care anymore.
Right. He starts just tearing it through red lights and through the streets.
And eventually they crash, and Vincent gets out of the car and runs away.
We missed a part, the coyote.
Oh, yeah. How did I miss the coyote? I read somewhere that wasn't supposed to be in the movie. Michael Mann just like
really?
Saw that. Yeah, the coyote just like showed up, or like a pack of coyotes showed up, and they were like, oh, we gotta This is production value. Get it on.
Because the
And then
movie treats it like it is a pivotal moment. Like there's something in Vincent that changes when he sees Max stop for this coyote.
It's up for interpretation. Anyway, so as the cops arresting him, he notices Vincent's little hit list, and it's like a screen.
Yep.
And it's, ironically enough, Jada Pinkett Smith. So then we get to the final showdown, and Vincent's about to shoot her, and Max shows up and shoots Vincent instead, but it doesn't kill him.
Getting to the Attorney General's floor with no card?
There is a lot of dramatic irony in this final act, and I'm okay with it. Vincent's about to shoot him, and Max is like, all right, here's where I make my final stand, and the lights go out, ironically. Mm-hmm. They just kind of like shoot a bunch of bullets at each other through the door.
Yep, through the glass.
Vincent is shot, but Max is not.
Which is crazy.
Which is insane, yeah. And Vincent realizes that he's out of ammo, so he goes to reload, and he drops his mag. And this is when he takes a second and then stops and then sits down. And the reason I think he does this is because he said, I do this for a living. But here he realized that he's not going to live anymore. So why would he do it? He doesn't kill people out of vanity. He kills people for a living. You know what I mean? And I like this because he sits down and then he realizes that like he was the prophecy, you know, like he kind of, the thing he read in the paper about the person dying in the train is like, was prophetic of his own death. Guy gets on the MTA and dies. Think anyone will notice?
Once upon a time, I was of the mind to lay your burdens down.